China's strategic maneuvers, the SCO Summit and Victory Day Parade. Glitz for global influence and a willing media. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, held a summit in Tianjin, northern China, from August 31 to September 1, 2025. This event closely coincided with the China Victory Day Parade in Beijing on September 3, commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II and the defeat of Japan. The timing of these two significant events enabled China's leadership to host global dignitaries and highlight the country's role on the international stage. Various opposition political groups, NGOs, and media outlets seized this opportunity to amplify their anti-Western sentiments, particularly targeting the United States, which were further fueled by remarks from the Chinese hosts. Unfortunately, the hyperbole and constant noise from mainstream media coverage have obscured the broader context of the meeting, especially concerning China's challenges and the actual outcomes of this Chinese influence campaign. The most significant event was the SCO meeting, which promoted China's leadership for the future. In contrast, the parades were less important and primarily served to emphasize the CCP's role in defeating Japan. The parade was titled the 2025 China Victory Day Parade, but its official name was the Conference to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. This lengthy title would likely evoke envy in any European Union bureaucrat for its verbose nature. The parade functioned more as a whitewash and a revision of history regarding the Chinese Communist Party's role in Japan's defeat, while neglecting the significant contributions of the US and other Western allies, as well as the larger role played by the Chinese nationalists led by the Kuomintang. The Kuomintang were ultimately defeated and forced into exile in Taiwan in 1949 by the Chinese Communists, who now govern mainland China. Both the US and Taiwan remain China's principal rivals. While it is important to acknowledge that the Chinese Communists played a role in the resistance against Japan, they were not the leading force in the ultimate defeat. The messaging of the parade was significant, as it creates a narrative, an embellished one, regarding the CCP's past role, which is utilized to bolster its legitimacy in today's world as it seeks to dismantle the Western-led, rules-based order that has been dominant since the end of World War II. Supporting this notion is the fact that China has held only two victory parades to commemorate the end of World War II, the first in 2015 and the second in 2025, both during Xi Jinping's leadership of Communist China. Under Xi's leadership, China has adopted a more confrontational stance on the global stage than under any Chinese leader since the conclusion of the Korean War in July 1953. Xi has leveraged the war commemoration to promote a narrative of a martial past and achievements that are largely rooted in a fiction he has crafted for his purposes. The most significant event was the SCO Summit in Tianjin, which concluded 2 days before the Victory Day Parade. The SCO members include Belarus, China, India, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, with leaders representing their countries at the summit. Additionally, there were invited members from South Asia, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and the UN Secretary-General. The SCO was originally formed in 1996 with 5 members, known as the Shanghai Five: China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, with the aim of managing border disputes. President Xi of China seized the opportunity to present his world vision, a theme he has addressed at other SCO summits, focusing on how the SCO can serve to counterbalance the Western-led, rules-based order. The headline-grabbing meeting at the event, particularly in the US, was the handshake between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and China's President Xi. The gesture was interpreted by the media and opposition as a statement indicating that US foreign policy has failed, effectively pushing India into the arms of Russia and China against the US. Additionally, there was a secondary implication that the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska was a failure due to this photo opportunity at the SCO. However, what the media and opposition failed to mention is that Prime Minister Modi did not remain in China to attend the Victory Parade, a fact that could undermine their narrative based solely on a photo op without context. The Indian Express articulates this well, noting that Modi's choice to skip the parade underlines India's continuing distance from Beijing's efforts to reinterpret the past for present purposes. The decision certainly does not convey the message that India has been coerced into forming a coalition against the West with China and Russia. President Xi used the summit to reiterate that countries should reject Cold War thinking and rival power blocs and protect the internationally UN-centered system. He was quoted by the app as saying, "The shadows of Cold War mentality, bullying, are not dissipating, and there are new challenges that are increasing, not diminishing." Despite these largely hollow statements about avoiding power blocks, his actions suggest otherwise. His call to protect the UN international system was likely met with skepticism and laughter from Manila, especially as China continues to harass the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea and other nations in the South China Sea. Notably, China rejected the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in 2016. China appears to accept the UN-centered system only when it aligns with Beijing's interests. China has put forward a series of proposals for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, that position it as the organization's leader in both its administrative structure and strategic direction. The most significant proposal is the establishment of an SCO development bank aimed at financing economic and infrastructure projects. While Russia has opposed this initiative in the past, its increasing dependence on countries like China and North Korea amid ongoing conflicts may limit its ability to block China's plans. Despite the ambitious nature of this goal, China's commitment of $1.4 billion to the bank is relatively modest and unlikely to rival established Western-led institutions such as the World Bank Group. However, this amount may be small enough to mitigate Russian objections. Additionally, China has made other proposals focused on areas such as energy, green industrial development, the digital economy, and technological innovation, as well as higher and vocational education. During the second day of the summit, President Xi announced what he referred to as a Global Governance Initiative, CGI. China plans to lead this initiative to create a new international order intended to rival and replace the existing post-World War II, Western-led, rules-based order. The initiative is based on 5 principles. 1. Adhere to sovereign equality. 2. Abide by international rule of law. 3. Practice multilateralism. 4. People-centered approach. 5. Focus on taking action. The principles of the CGI appear to be hollow rhetoric when viewed alongside China's actions on the world stage, particularly under Xi's leadership. Actions such as illegal claims in the South China Sea, debt trap diplomacy, and threats of invasion against Taiwan indicate a shift toward a renewed Cold War-style bilateral dominance, akin to the era of the Soviet Union. The CCP is trying to change an organization that was first set up to solve border issues between member countries, and it wants to make BRICS a major economic and political group to compete with the Western, rules-based order, indicating a move to create a different set of rules. This development seems to be steering the world toward a bipolar bloc rivalry reminiscent of the Cold War, despite Xi Jinping's disingenuous statements to the contrary. Much of China's aggressive rhetoric and actions have been driven by Xi Jinping, who draws inspiration from Mao Zedong and cultivates a similar personality cult. This trend raises questions about whether China's current trajectory will endure beyond Xi's leadership or whether a more reflective successor might reverse his initiatives. China faces significant challenges, including a looming demographic crisis, substantial off-balance sheet debt, persistent youth unemployment, and a real estate crisis. CCP leaders may feel the need for a more introspective leader who could help re-establish international trust in an effort to slow the decoupling process and encourage international investment in China. The ongoing attempt to revise history and dominate the future follows a course set by Xi, aiming to create a new world order. However, this path may involve rhetoric that masks reckless action. China might struggle to sustain this new Xi doctrine, and the most favorable outcome could be a Pyrrhic victory. This reality is well understood by a new generation of leaders within the Politburo.